This morning has been pretty fun. In our first service, about 30 minutes in, we had a preschooler pull the fire alarm. First time in 25 years, and we all had to leave the auditorium. It was quite funny, but everybody was okay. Maybe a child was a little embarrassed, but it made for an eventful morning. So you never really know what's going to happen at church. But today, we're going to continue in our series, Save the Date. Who has got something out of this series? We've got a couple things. Who's here has been maybe challenged a little bit with relationships? Well, we're going to continue it today, talking about dating. Are they the one is the question. We all have that thought in our minds. And the last couple weeks for myself have been pretty exciting. About 2 weeks ago, I got engaged. We got a photo of my lovely fiance, Sophie. And we got this next photo. This is me securing the deal. She said yes, thumbs up. If she said no, I was going to cancel her flights back from Vancouver. We had gone and helped my older brother move back home and thought it was a great excuse to have her there. And it was kind of fun. We had all these happy little accidents that we didn't know. Her mom had taken her there as a child. She was born about a block and a half away from where I proposed. It was kind of fun. God works funny like that. But that was great. And then as of today, I will have graduated my bachelor's of counseling, specializing in marriage and family, which is great. But I was so convinced, I've been doing this for about 2.5 years, for the past 3, 4, 5 years, I've been really convinced that a lot of the issues that we're seeing in society are going to be fixed in the home. And by having strong marriages and strong families, a lot of these issues that we're seeing are actually going to be healed at the root cause. But there's a big but in there. And that is these relationships have to be centered around Christ. No amount of therapy or counseling or good trying hard can ever come close to centering a relationship around the one who relationships begin with. You see, we were singing it earlier. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, 3 in 1. You see, in our scriptures, it says that God is love. But love, according to the dictionary, is a strong feeling towards a person or thing that has to be enacted upon. What does that mean? It means that love, to be love, has to be enacted upon somebody else. It has to be put in action. And we see that in the Trinity, where the Father shows love to the Son, and the love shows Son to the Father, and the Father to the Spirit to the Son, and the Son to the Spirit. Do you see that kind of triangle it's creating? So God, the first relationship, was God himself. And that's where we see the basis of all relationships. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today. And I hope you're excited. It's going to be great. The word is going to be, the scriptures are so beautiful. And we see so much in it. We see the man who finds a treasure receives favor from the Lord. For the man who finds a wife finds a treasure and receives favor from the Lord. And all the wives said, amen. And the fathers, in another proverb says, fathers can give their sons an inheritance of houses and wealth, but only the Lord can give an understanding wife. So we're going to discuss that tension. Do I find my significant other, or do I get given a significant other? And the answer is yes. It is both and. There is effort, and then there's God giving at the same time. We're going to walk through that tension a little bit. But I was reminded as I was preparing, about 8 years ago when I was in Bible college, I had gone on a couple dates with this one girl. And things are going out pretty good. I thought she was pretty. We had some things in common. We were both Canadian, but we were living in Australia at the time. But she was from Edmonton. I don't seem to learn from my mistakes. Sophie is from Edmonton. If you didn't know, she's an Oilers fan, so we're still praying for her. Lord, help the Canucks. That hurt me saying that. But this one night, we had gone to this place called El Jana, and it was a Lebanese chicken rotisserie place. It was incredible, but it's like shawarma. So I took a girl to shawarma on a date, and which questionable decision to begin with, because I don't know about you, but when you get shawarma, you got to get the garlic sauce. You got to get the onions and the pickled whatever they have. So that happens. We're getting in the car. We're talking. Everything's good. And then out of nowhere, I hear her burp quite loud. And I think to myself, well, we just had shawarma. Like, understandable. That's fine. I'll give you one. And something you may not know about me, I don't really like those kinds of bodily noises. I understand they're normal, so I'm not weird like that. But if I have to choose between hearing them and not hearing them, I'm choosing not hearing them. So I go, okay, that's one. And then again and again. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to smell what we just ate. And I'm going, this is disgusting. So I just look over and I go, hey, do you got to? And I literally said, I would like to find you attractive, and this isn't helping, was what I said. Harsh, I know. But then she goes, and continues to burp in my car. And I am traumatized at this point. I'm thinking three things. I discovered three things. One, shawarma tastes a whole lot better than it smells coming out of somebody's mouth. Two, that was a waste of $50 on that date. And three, this woman is not for me. And I ended it in the car ride when I dropped her off at home. And that was it. So maybe you've been in a relationship and maybe hopefully you haven't had to experience that. But maybe you've gone, how do I navigate relationships? Well, that's what today's going to be about. So why don't we pray and we'll jump into it. Jesus, we're so thankful for your word. We thank you that your word does not return void. And we thank you for the gift of relationships. So we pray right now that as we gather around your word, you're going to challenge us where we need to be challenged and affirm us where we need to be affirmed. We thank you that you are a good father and you only want good things for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So today we're going to talk about how do I know if they're the one? How do I know the person I'm dating is the right person? Well, this is going to be targeted more towards singles or people who are dating or engaged, but there's going to be wisdom for everyone to apply because married people, a reminder, you are still dating your spouse. And there's this interesting thing in my studies. I found marital satisfaction kind of starts off high. Starts off here. You're newlywed. The honeymoon period. You're super happy. And then you start to have kids. And then statistically, marital satisfaction starts to dip a little bit. All of a sudden, I'm focusing more on the kids. I'm not so much spending time on relationship. The relationship has started to whatever. And then after kids, when they kind of grow up, and marital satisfaction comes up actually higher than you were before. But there's some key things that need to happen there, and it's continually dating your spouse, continually keeping an emotional connection with them. Secondly, we got parents in the room. Who here's a parent? Who here's parent pulled the fire alarm this morning? No parent wants to admit to that. Nobody would. And then, so parents in the room, your child is going to be dating. The world's kind of crazy at the moment. So it's important to have some scriptural understanding of what does dating look like. What should I be helping guide my parents in, training up my child in the way that they should go. And then we've got single and unmarried people. So I'm including basically everybody who's not married at this point. You could be single, dating, engaged, all three. If you're in that category, you still get to choose your spouse. And the person you are with, until you've made a covenant relationship before God, read marriage, before you have made that relationship, you do not owe them covenant perks. These covenant perks are for better or for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. Until you are married, you do not owe anybody on God's green earth those things. But it can be difficult when you're in the moment to go, oh, should I continue? Should I whatever? Dating is the preparation, and you start to see where people are at. So today I've got a short list of some things to help gauge if the person you are with or want is the correct person. But the inception of this message came from last month at our young adult service. We're actually doing one tonight at 6 o'clock. We'd love to see you there. But we do this thing called You Asked For It. And You Asked For It is people send in questions, and then we vote for them while everybody's there, and then we answer the question. And somebody asked, what should I look for in my significant other? So I had kind of thought about it, looked at it, and the verse, 1 Thessalonians 5:23-24 came to my mind, and it says this: Now may the God of peace make you holy in every way, and may your whole spirit and soul and body be kept blameless until our Lord Jesus Christ comes again, and God will make this happen, for he who calls you is faithful. What I saw there was body, mind, spirit. Body, soul, spirit. Body, physical, mind, mental, obviously, emotions, personality, spirit, faith. So with that, I came up with this. For what should I look for in my significant other? Face. Do you find them pretty? Are you attracted? Physical attraction. 2 is friendship. This is your emotional, your mental connection. Thirdly, faith. Are you connected in your faith? And the more studies that I've read, the more you have in common makes it easier for your relationship. Not easy, just easier. Because you're kind of walking in with the same kind of background. How did your parents grow up? How much money did your parents have? How much schooling do you have? All those things kind of make things easier or not. But that's important for if you're maybe coming from 2 vastly different cultural backgrounds or growing up backgrounds. You've got to understand that communication is going to be your best friend in making this all work. So with these 3 parts of ours, we're going to look at it and how to set ourselves up to be attractive in every way. Because although it is important to be looking for other people, but are you the person they should date too? Because I can't control anybody else, but I can control me. Am I somebody that God would trust with one of his prized possessions, another person? That's what we have to be asking ourselves. So as much as this is somebody else the right person, the other question is, am I the right person that God is creating me to be? But I had face, friendship, faith. I had those 3. So I started creating a list. What other things does the scriptures talk about that we should look for? So we're going to start off with things we don't want in our significant other. So I'm going to quote the modern day philosopher group TLC. We don't want no scrubs. Everybody say no scrubs. A scrub is a girl who can't get no love from me, or guy if you're a woman. So here is some things that the Bible says makes you a scrub. 1, are they foolish? Proverbs talk a lot about the fool. And the fool here is somebody who makes continual dumb decisions. And these are not small decisions. These are character decisions. These are things like, are they, we can take that verse down. That's not the wrong verse. We got things like, are they continually texting their exes? I just want to see how they're doing. That's kind of a dumb idea. You're in a relationship. Do they keep spending too much money on food and they can't pay rent at the end of the month? That's a continual dumb decision. Are they looking to become wise or are they resistant to wisdom? Proverbs 1:7 says, the fear of the Lord, the awe of God, is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Are they able to be challenged? Are they willing to change? Or are they wanting to only stay the way they are because that's the way God made me? God just made me like this. And then you're going, dang, that was the best he could have done? You know what I mean? And this is where iron sharpens iron. Are they fake? Are they one person in public and another person in private? Do they talk really kindly to all their friends when they're in front of them, but then when you're alone with them, all they're doing is talking bad about them? Or do they put on this projection of who people think they want to be, and then there's somebody else behind? Because when you transition during the different relationship steps, the person stays the same. The commitment level increased, but the person has stayed the same. Are they flaky? Great example. Can they keep a job? Or is it always somebody else's fault? I just don't know how. Some people just tend to find 30 bad bosses in a row. It's incredible, the amount of different sectors of the work industry, but they always seem to find the one bad boss who's really out to get them. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with their work ethic, showing up to work on time, being clean, having showered beforehand. It has nothing to do with that. It has always to do something with somebody else's boss, right? We all know that person. Proverbs 22-29 says this, do you see any truly competent workers? Because they will serve kings rather than working for ordinary people. What does that mean? It means that when you work hard, when you give your best at work, which in the New Testament we see is actually a part of our worship, that our worship is not just coming to church, singing songs, praying to God. It's actually including our jobs, our eating, our drinking. So we see that those people get rewarded and they go far in life. But then you also see 1 Timothy 5:8 says this, but those who won't care for their relatives, especially those in their own household, have denied the true faith, and such people are worse than unbelievers. If you can't provide for your own family. Paul is here saying, tough. That's a faith issue. Can the person that you're with keep their word? James 5:12 says this, but most of all, my brothers and sisters, never take an oath by heaven or earth or anything else. Just say a simple yes or no so that you will not sin. Ooh, interesting. Is the person you're with, are they going to keep their word or are they not? Or are they going to bait and switch you on things? Because once you add more family dynamics and kids into the mix, all of a sudden that becomes way more tricky. And then the last thing we don't want, or the last thing that makes a scrub, is friction, drama. Does drama seem to just follow them around all the time? Is something always wrong, and it's always somebody else's fault? In Proverbs 18:6, it says this, fools' words get them into constant quarrels, and they are asking for a beating. We're going to spend majority of our life with our significant other. Are they quarrelsome? It's funny, there's this one verse where Paul writes, it's better to live alone in the desert than to live with a nagging wife. That's what Paul writes, but you can make it both ways. Guys can be nags too, you know? We can be quarrelsome. But is the person you're with, it's funny. Apostle Paul never got married, but maybe he was a little quarrelsome too. You know what I mean? But the concept is the same. You know, are we creating fights in our relationships that are unnecessary? And what kind of fights are you having? I've heard it explained that there's anger. A lot of times can be described with fire. Has anybody seen that analogy, that anger and fire kind of like linked sometimes? But I've heard the difference between there's white fire and red fire. White fire is like that of ore, of gold, or of silver, where it purifies and removes all the old. That is when you are fighting with your partner against an issue. The problem, your significant other is not the problem. The problem is the problem, and you are working together. And you might get angry in that moment, but at least it's directed towards the issue and not your partner. But then there's red fire, forest fires, fires that burn down houses. Those fires destroy what it is. And that is when you end up making your significant other the issue rather than the issue being the issue. And a lot of times the issue is just communication. But we're going to move into some positive things. What do we want in a partner? First one being face. We want to be physically attracted to our partner. Do we not? If we're going to be procreating and creating children, you don't want to be the only one holding up your end of the bargain on the genetic gene pool, right? Right? But at the same time, in the priority of things that you should be looking for, this one's the lowest of the list, right? Bodies change. You might not look as attractive as you do when you're 60, or maybe that's just me. But the key things here, do they have habits of health? Are they taking care of their body? The scriptures say that our bodies are temples of God. So are they treating their temple well? Or are they destroying it? And this could be a whole lot of different things. And God has a plan for each and every one of us. But it's also linked to our physical body. Because when my physical body gives up, that so ends what God's plan is for me on earth. Because I can no longer do it. And I would like to see us all spend a long time on earth. And a long time with our best friends. That's the goal. And we see in, the scriptures talk a lot about beauty. Song of Solomon 4:7. This is poems written between two lovers. It says, you are altogether beautiful, my darling, beautiful in every way. He also says that your hair flowing is like that of a flock of goats, which is an odd. When was the last time somebody got called a goat and you're like, oh my God, he loves me? You know what I mean? I'm sure I would get smacked if I called Sophie a goat. Next we've got is friendship. And this is the second level of attraction, which is now more important than the first, but this is about mental, intellect, emotional. This is your emotional connection that you have with your partner. It says iron sharpens iron. Are they making you a better person? Are they spurring you on to what God has for your life? Or are they just letting you kind of coast? Or are they pushing you towards what God has for you? Some other things, are they fun? Life, for the most part, is not fun. Waking up, going to work, the mundane isn't fun or exciting. But your relationships can make life fun. Are they a fun person to be around, or do they just drag life down? Are they a bore? Next is, are they flirty? And this is where I think sometimes when we talked about that dip is where we forget that we're dating our spouse. That it dips a little bit, but are they flirty? So here's this thing. Has anybody heard of the Gottman Institute? There's a research group out in the States, and they have this study on bids. Has anybody heard that? I know Pastor Anthony has talked about it before, but bids, anybody familiar with that term? What these bids are bids for connection. So these bids for connection, you've got three options when they happen. You can turn towards, you acknowledge this bid for connection, or you can turn away or ignore and reject it, or you can turn against and fight over this bid of connection. And this is how small and easy these bids are. These bids could be your spouse is working late, writing an email at the dinner table, doing their thing. And they go, that sigh there was a bid. Your spouse or your partner has offered you an opportunity to engage in emotional connection. And these bids are important. Why? This Gottman Institute, they did this research where these bids come from, is they took about 1,000 couples, sat them in a room, had them talk for about an hour, sent them off. And 20 to 30 years later, brought them all back and went to see where is your relationship now. Some had succeeded and were still together. Some had failed and went, what is the difference? So they started going through all these different, the communication. What were they talking about? What was the depth of the emotional connection? All this kind of stuff. And they found that the depth of the conversation actually had very little prediction on the outcome. But what did was, were they acknowledging these bids for connection? And they almost had it to about a 90-something% accuracy to would the relationship make it or be successful or not, all based on these bids for connection. Another bid that you could see, you're driving in the car. And you're going, and the person in the passenger seat goes, oh, that's my favorite brunch spot. Turning towards would look like this. Really? What's your favorite thing to get there? You have engaged in the bid, and you have turned towards them. You have turned your connection towards them. You could turn you could turn away from or ignore it. Oh, that's my favorite breakfast place. That's nice. And in your head, you're thinking about something else. Or you turn against. That's my favorite breakfast place. Oh my God, you spent so much money on brunch. I swear, if you go for brunch one more time, like all of a sudden, do you see, now you've made an argument over somebody just going, this is my favorite brunch spot. And all of a sudden, you're fighting. But has anybody ever experienced something like that where all of a sudden you're like, what the heck was that? Going back to the sigh at the dinner table, oh, what's frustrating you at work? Bid for connection. You've now engaged in the bid. Or you ignore it, just let them sigh on. Or, oh, you are so dramatic. Maybe if you were more efficient at work, you wouldn't have to take it home with you, yada, yada, yada. All of a sudden, now you've started a fight over somebody going, I'm just trying to connect a little bit. And why are these important? Well, did anybody remember when Pastor Anthony the other week talked about in sexual satisfaction how people want to test drive the car, which is a pretty gross analogy because people aren't things to be test driven. They're people to be loved, right? In this same way, I was reading a study out of Germany, and they found that they had concluded that 57% of sexual satisfaction comes from things not done in the bedroom. That over 50% of your sexual satisfaction is actually due to emotional connection, with the greatest predictors being communication and a positive outlook on life. So for people who are going, oh, I need to see if we're compatible. Actually, the greatest things to see if you're compatible don't have to do with any physical action. They're actually emotional. Can they communicate with me? Do they have a positive outlook on life? Are they a bore? Are they constantly moaning and groaning about how life is so difficult, but their life looks pretty much like everybody else's, so it can't be that bad, but they just have such a low level of hard? Like this is actually the greatest. So when the scriptures talk about, leaving sex for marriage, this is part of the reason why. It's because you're not walking in with all this excess baggage. You're not you're not moving towards more commitment than what the relationship segment or where you're at in your relationship allows. And on top of that, there's so many studies that are coming out that are showing that the saving sex for marriage actually increases marital satisfaction as well. But the beautiful thing about God is no matter where you've been in your journey with that is that God restores. And that's what he does. And that no matter where you've come from, maybe you've got baggage, you got issues, Jesus is your healer. And he is your peace, he is your portion. And there's nobody who is too far gone that God cannot restore. And what is their track record? What is their fruit? Do they seem to cheat on all their exes? Do they have a reputation? What kind of reputation do they have? Is it a good one? A lot of people have reputations. And at the end of the day, results don't lie. For matters of the heart, use your head. Think it through. Is this a person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? Because people can say all the right things, but are they doing the right things? Another F to look at is family. Do you want a family? Do they want a family? If one of you says no, that's creating a big issue. Do they have a good relationship with their family where possible? Obviously, there's a lot of dysfunction in some families, so sometimes it's better to not be in a relationship with their family. But if their family is healthy, do they have a good relationship with their family? Do they have a sense of entitlement? Do they have towards their parents or whatever, or their siblings? And lastly, the most important thing is this: their faith. Are you attracted to them spiritually? And this is interesting, where as Christians, the foundation of our life and all the decisions we should make should be based around Christ. Being based around, what does God's word say? What does God want from my life? Because we know everything that's not God is not going to be the best. That God's got a plan for us. He's got a thing they do. There's this verse, 2 Corinthians 6:14, that says, don't team up with those who do not believe. How can a righteous person be a partner with wickedness? If I've got my life is set this way, I want to live my life around that of Christ, and my partner goes, I don't want to do that. We're already at competing odds. We're looking at the world completely different. I want to do this. I want to die to self. I want more of Christ's life, which is kind of counterculture towards what the world wants, but they want to kind of go around with culture. So all of a sudden, you've created so much friction right off the top. Then we've got, if they are Christian, do they worship? Are they engaged in church? Is church just something they go to? Is check off the faith checklist? Yep, God likes me today. I went to church. God likes me today. My child pulled the fire alarm in the first service. But I went to church. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, we create this rule book around God and our relationships. Or are they actually passionate? Do they come to church and they want to show God how much they love him? They'll raise their hands. They'll sing. All these things are important. God likes to be loved a certain way. And one of the ways he wants to be loved is through song and with the raising of our hands. So all of a sudden, that can tell you a great part where somebody's heart is at. And I know, it's so uncomfortable. You start off and you're like, oh my Lord, my shoulders are getting tired at this point. I got to raise my hands for 5 minutes. Oh my Lord. But maybe that's the sacrifice you have to bring today. What an easy sacrifice to bring to God. That you're building a little bit of muscle in your accessories. You know what I mean? Or I read another study from the Institute of Family Studies, IFS. It says, if you attend church every week, you are 10 times less likely to go through a separation. Oof. It's almost like being in a community surrounded around God's word helps. Then you've got, are they cynical towards God? Who's the authority in their life? Are they anti-God? Who's setting the rules for how we act in our lives? If not allowing God to be the authority, you can have a difficult time keeping consistent values and standards. Do they trust God with their finances? This is a great place to see where somebody's heart is. Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, where your treasure is, your heart is there also. Where is your person's heart? Is it with God or is it in materialistic things? Are they more focused on the temporal? Because here's the thing. I'm going to trust Sophie with my heart, my most prized possession, my hopes, my dreams, my deepest, darkest feelings. I'm trusting them with them. I'm trusting her with those. If she doesn't even trust God with her money, I'm going to trust her with that? She has that low of a level of trust with God? You see, when we give things to God, we get more back in return. Does anybody remember, maybe if you haven't been around, but last September, I was speaking and I shared a testimony for myself where I had wanted a new car. Part of it, completely selfish, I wanted to impress Sophie. Completely honest, I knew I was going up to Edmonton the next month and I wanted to have a nice car. I'm going to be completely real, a little bit selfish. And that's why. And also, I didn't want to drive my car anymore because I didn't like it. And it was getting old. But I put down a list. It needed to have CarPlay. It needed to have 100,000 or less kilometers. It needed to have leather seats. It needed to have heated seats. It needed to have a heated steering wheel. It needed to have a panoramic sunroof. It needed to be taken care of. It needed to have taken good oil changes. The owner must have been a freak with the car. It needed to be clean. It needed to have, I had this whole list. It had to be a dark or neutral exterior. I wrote all these things. And I went, God, you said, ask for it, you receive. I'm going to trust you in this. And within a month, and help from somebody here at Calgary Life Church, I found the car that fit everything I needed. And actually, I had given up on one part of the car. I wanted Apple CarPlay. I wanted my phone just to connect easily. And I didn't see when I bought the car, I didn't have it. I went, do you know what? God, it was close enough. I'll take it, which is kind of dumb. I settled. But then I get in the car. I plug my USB thing. I plug in my phone, and I'd done research on the car, and it didn't have CarPlay, but I had misread something. This was a later model of that same year that I had looked at, and the later model had CarPlay. So all of a sudden, the thing that I had given up on, I actually got. And then I was like, that's kind of cool. And then I was sitting in the car with my sister, and she hit the CD button, and then started a child Disney walkthrough reading of The Lion King, which to most people means not much. But if you've been here, I've been used as a sermon illustration a few times, where as a kid, I thought I was Simba from The Lion King. The Mayor Goldwyn lion at the beginning of movies that would roar. Remember, like as a kid, I'd be like, look at my big mouth. So all of a sudden, I felt like there was a little wink from God that, yeah, this was the car that I had for you, that there was some random coincidence that God had connected with. And at that same time, I'd also put together a list of the person I wanted in my significant other. I wrote down everything, and I'll read you parts of my list. I needed them to be intelligent. I wanted to talk about God without things getting awkward. I wanted them to be trendy. That's the physical attraction there. I wanted them to love kids, work hard, want to be a mom. I wanted them to love people, wanted to be able to host and be hospitable and host. I wanted them to be into health and fitness. I wanted them to be a good steward of their money. I wanted them to be easy to talk to. I wanted them to be able to connect with my family because I've got a real strong sense of family value there. I wanted them to be able to banter with me, like make fun of each other back and forth, but in fun ways. I wanted them to be consistent. I wanted my sister to be friends with them. So I had this whole list. So essentially, I wanted a miracle. And then on top of that, I needed them to like me. You know what I mean? Like, just so you can find those attributes in somebody else, I had to like you. And I believe I found all those things and more. God has given me little winks, things that I had maybe had in my heart but didn't write down because I was maybe ashamed that I wanted them in a person, you know? I wanted somebody who thought I was attractive. That feels a little selfish, but like deep down was a need for me. And Sophie doesn't have great eyesight, so God works in mysterious ways. But I had all these things that I wanted, and God answered my prayer. Why? Matthew 6:33. When you seek first the kingdom and live righteously, he will give you everything you need. That when you put God first, you get everything you need. That goes for your relationships, that goes for your finances, that goes for your mental health, that goes for your physical health, that when we seek first the kingdom, when we put God first, we don't come second. That God honors us back. And that's part of who he is. And relationships are one of the greatest things God gives us. And it can hold our greatest joys, but also our greatest sorrows at the same time.